Hey everybody, this is the Let's Talk podcast, hosted by Ira Warren, a facilitator and coach with Vistage Worldwide. In each episode, Ira shares with you over 40 years of successful business leadership and his driving passion to enhance the lives of CEOs throughout Long Island using the Vistage Peer Advisory model. Here's this week's show.
Most business owners know that digital marketing is extremely important, but they may not know where to start. The digital landscape has changed tactics a bit, but the same old school of marketing rules still apply. But what if you're not tech savvy? The digital marketing world could be extremely intimidating. Like, where is your target audience? And how could you get them into your website? Jim Faulknor is the co-founder of Right Now Inbound Marketing, a digital marketing agency that specializes in branding, increasing conversations, and quality organic and paid traffic. I invited Jim today to share his entrepreneurial journey and to shed some light on how small businesses can begin developing their digital marketing strategies from scratch. In the interest of full disclosure, I've known Jim for over 5 years when he had presented a discussion on what marketing could do for my business group. Since then, with his partner Paul Walsh, along with their entire team, have helped place many on the proverbial marketing map. I too have had success putting their expertise to use in my own companies. And a little known fact that I just found out. Jim was a contestant on Wheel of Fortune for several years. And I just also learned he was a bartender in a past life. Well, with all of that said, let's begin. Jim, welcome to Let's Talk.
Thanks, Ira. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad for the invitation and looking forward to our discussion today.
Terrific. Word on the street is you were a pretty good bartender at one point. In fact, I heard that you went from that job straight into marketing. Was there something about making cocktails that segued into marketing?
It wasn't that much of a segue, but I did bartend before I was full-blown into the marketing world. But I went to college for marketing and advertising at Syracuse and graduated with a dual major in those two endeavors and looked for a job and was excited to move on with my life and get out into the world and not live in Long Island anymore. I looked in Chicago and Atlanta and all kinds of great places. But at the time of my graduating college, there was no jobs to be found, especially when you had no experience. So back home I went and I was waiting tables at a local restaurant and finally got a job at a advertising agency in Long Island as entry level. And at the same time, I got promoted to be a bartender within the restaurant and continued my bartending ways for a few years as entry level and advertising world didn't pay a lot then. So yes, I slung many cocktails over the years, and the one thing that bartending did give me was the ability to talk to pretty much anybody. And when you're out there in the world of marketing and or trying to get people to understand what it is that you're trying to help them with and educate them on inbound marketing and marketing in general and how marketing can actually help, grow their business, the bartending skills do come in handy.
So it's the early 90s, it's pre-internet. You go to work for a traditional advertising agency and you get your feet wet with a major brand called Haagen-Dazs. Did that give you some basic skills as far as account management in the advertising world?
It did. And honestly, being entry level and as entry level as I was, I also understood that when you're graduating college at that time frame, not a lot of people even know how to use a computer. So I kind of made my way around the office, and I'll get to that in a minute. But back to Haagen-Dazs. We had at the time, the agency I was at had Haagen-Dazs shops and also Haagen-Dazs brand as their two clients. And Haagen-Dazs brand was run by a guy named Nick Becci, who had tremendous amount of experience in New York City in advertising as an account manager and account executive. And he pretty much took me under his wing and taught me all the ins and outs of account management. He was really a mentor to me, and he taught me a tremendous amount of how to deal with the clients, what to expect from clients, what they expect from you, how to really handle the client. And it was a tremendous asset. Learning from that guy, Nick, was just a fantastic mentor. At the same time, we worked on the Shops brand, and I did a lot of, the low level stuff, as you can imagine. So at one point, I was a mystery shopper. I had to be sent all over the East Coast to go to Haagen-Dazs shops and to be a mystery shopper and then record if the specific location was up to speed and if the people were doing as they were supposed to do, which is try and upsell and things like that. So that was a unique experience as well, learning that side of the business and kind of the grassroots of marketing in that world. At the same time, at this agency, though, I was working they had a database director who happened to be the wife of the guy who runs the business. And as a database director, one would think he'd know how to work Excel. But of course, she did not know how to work Excel. So my skills came in and I pretty much ran the database division because she didn't even know how to work Excel. And I guess being just getting out of college and Microsoft Word, people couldn't really handle that very well either. So I became the internal IT guy because everybody that had problems with their computers would come to me. So I kind of started to learn all elements of the advertising world, aside from account management. I got pretty close with some of the art people, and that's where I met Paul. And that's when Paul and I decided to use our skills in tandem and try to start our own business.
So you put your time in at the agency and you woke up one morning and said, I could do this myself. What was the catalyst for doing that?
Say it like that, Ira, because there is a truth to that I did wake up one day and said I could do this myself, but it didn't necessarily mean marketing at that time in my life, because I had already woken up and said I can do this myself. And I originally thought I could run my own restaurant and bar, to be perfectly honest with you. So at the same time, I was talking to Paul, or I shouldn't say, I was speaking to the head chef at the restaurant I was at prior to speaking to Paul. And him and I had already kicked around some ideas of starting our own restaurant and or bar type of business in downtown Port Jefferson. So I had already had the inkling that running my own business of some kind would really be the route I would go in my life at some point. It became more prevalent when Paul and I had more discussions and understood that his skill set matched perfectly with my skill set. So we figured that, and it's not only that, I mean, I went to school for marketing and advertising, so why not start a career in that as opposed to a restaurateur, if you will. But yes, I at that point knew that I wanted to start my own business, and I was pretty much emphatic on that I wanted to do my own thing. So whether it was I woke up one day or it was just all the things that I learned leading me up to that day that just said, it's time to do it for yourself. And my number one goal was to try to help businesses. That's what I really wanted to do, was try to get involved with some businesses and really help them grow. So that was always the mentality from day one back in 1996 when we started.
So as I understand your history, the first couple of years, you actually developed somewhat of a niche in offering web development, which at the time was not very commonplace in the business world.
Yeah, no, not at all. We actually started our business in 96, and 97, we used to get out there and hitting the roads and trying to get people to understand what a website could be like. And you'd get out on some meetings and you would go into these businesses and you'd say, would you like to get a website done? And they'd be like, what's a website? And you'd pull it up on dial-up and it'd be those sounds from back in the day. And when the website would finally load after about 3 minutes of it just slowly coming up, people would be like, wow, that's fantastic, but can I get a brochure? And no one really wanted a website then. And then what happened in our business, ironically, is around 1998, 99, the .com, bubble started. And at that point, 99 into 2000, everybody wanted a website, but nobody knew why. They just wanted one. I need to get a .com. I want to be .com. So it really did help to, our business take off. And but things have changed quite dramatically since the year 2000.
We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back with more from Jim Faulknor.
Vistage is where leaders learn and grow. We help CEOs and business owners grow their business through executive coaching and peer advisory groups. Ready to succeed at a whole new level? Learn more at irawarren.com.
Well, then 2000 did come along, and as we call it looking back, it was the dot-com bust. What happened to business at that time?
Well, it was funny. Right around that year 2000, ironically, we were working with some of the bigger companies in Long Island. We were working with Arrow Electronics. They're probably the biggest business in Long Island, or one of them. And at the time, they needed so much digital work done. They needed a lot of presentations done. They wanted a lot of demos done. They wanted work on their website. And we started working with them probably in 99 in through 2000 into early 2001. But by 2001, they had about 100 people working in their Arrow.com business internally. So as you can imagine, that was a big dynamic shift of the business landscape for us in that early 2000s. We started to realize that the really big organizations in Long Island were going to be handling things themselves. So we kind of started to get into the secondary tier of businesses, kind of like more of your, maybe not your top, let's say 50 businesses in Long Island, but now we're into the 50 to 250 in that range of going after businesses in that world and sticking mostly to B2B, which was kind of our niche. And we started getting involved with a lot of businesses doing certain things, certain projects, building out websites and things like that. But even then, things changed. Again, back to my original thoughts, when we first started our business, the mantra of really trying to grow a business or help a business was something that never went to the side, right? So we always did whatever we possibly could to help the businesses that we were working with try to grow, right? And utilizing these technologies and the websites at the time, it was a double-edged sword, right? So we had a lot of clients that were doing great work with us, but they would then call us up and say, "Hey, Jim, I have on my contact page, we have a list of people that are working for us, but our main sales guy just left. He went to another company. So can you just take him off the website?" And at the time, you'd be like, "Well, sure, of course, I'd be more than happy to," but you'd have to charge them for that sort of a process because the time it took to download the website and then make the change. It wasn't as simple as just making a change back then. You had to then reconnect every button on the website and then re-upload the site back to the server that it was on. And that upload and download time, it could take an hour or two just for a simple change. But we were having clients say to us, "Well, you know what? Forget it. I'll leave them up there." Well, that defeats the purpose, right? I'm here to help you. Now they're going to be looking for the sales guy who's not even with your team anymore, only simply because I want to charge you a simple hourly rate. So it became kind of this, it became very detrimental to our business because we're trying to help and people were getting upset with us that we have to charge for this sort of thing. But it was also business. You needed to, be compensated for your time. So we actually created a content management system prior to content management systems being really how they are today. Everything's content managed. But we created rudimentary content managed pages so that people could change simple text on a page. So something in that world of taking somebody off the website who is now not there anymore, we put that power back into the hands of our clients. And we built that out when we would build out the website. So it became a pretty big selling tool for us when we did go up against other businesses that were building websites in those early 2000s, because we did have that rudimentary content management system.
So that then led you to realize you needed to expand the business into beyond web development and take it to different places and use the technologies in order to do that.
Exactly.
How did that change your business, and what year would that have been?
Well, there was two dynamic shifts in our business between after 2000 till about 2012, I would say. The first one was when we had this content management system, we realized we could maybe try to push this out to smaller businesses, right? So we said, why not give the power of the content manager to a small business at the time who didn't have access to your free Wix sites that are out there today, or some of the other really cheap, inexpensive things that are out there. So we created content management systems that were very niche oriented, like for realtors, and or for CPAs and or insurance agents. And we actually sold quite a bit of those sorts of mini websites that people then had complete control over, that they could then add their own content. And we didn't really deal with them on a case-to-case basis. We were just more of a hosting solution that they paid us a monthly fee for. What this did, though, is this led us to an agreement to work with the Boys and Girls Clubs of America. So they had come to us after they saw our content management systems for these smaller types of businesses and basically said that we would like to be able to offer our clubs across the country the ability to have websites that are content managed. So we started working with the Boys and Girls Clubs probably in around 2002. And we still work with probably close to 150 clubs across the country right now, providing them with some of these sorts of resources and the ability for them to have these websites that are kind of self-managed and they can kind of handle those on their own. But what that did was that led us to the other, let's call it pain point of our business, was that in the mid 2000s, let's say your 2007 to 2008, 2009, when you go out and try to sell website development to those medium-sized businesses on Long Island or anywhere in the country, based on how it is easy to communicate online, we started to run into some issues that people would just simply say, I already have a website. I bought a website years ago and it's fine. It's good enough. I don't care. I have it. You know, no one knew why they even had a website anymore. It's not doing anything for them. It's a glorified brochure. It just sits on there on the server. It's not giving any new information out. It's the same thing whether I check it today, last year, or a year from now. And it started to become almost like a very frustrating process for us to try to deal with businesses, to try to help them in this digital landscape when they didn't want any help. So that became very frustrating as well. And we kind of went back to our roots and we kind of said to ourselves from a perspective around 2010, how do we get back to our basic business mantra? How do we help businesses grow? And how do we help them grow in the digital landscape and online? And how are we going to do that? We're going to do that by really understanding and learning the inbound marketing methods, which is where we're at today. And that's why we changed the name of our business from Engine Room Digital Marketing to right now Inbound Marketing, because it's more about, at the time in the late 90s, Engine Room was great because it was a place that the thought process was, we're the guys that are going to build it for you. We're Engine Room. We're the guys in that room downstairs that's going to make sure your website's running and everything's going great. With right now Inbound Marketing, it's more about how do you engage and interact with people right now? The people that are looking for your products or services, how do they find you right now, as opposed to waiting until an ad's written or whatever it may be? So that's what we did. We went back to the drawing board. We spent a couple of years really, really understanding it. And then we had a long-time client that we had landed in the late 90s that's been with us forever, that we used them as, hate to say a guinea pig, but unfortunately they kind of were. It was really just more or less putting all the things we've learned to paper and seeing it work with a client that had utmost, confidence in us, that when we saw it working for them, we knew it would work for pretty much anybody. It's just a matter of now getting the strategies revolved around what the pain points of each individual client we have, what are their needs, and how do we get these tools to work for them to grow their business.
Got it. Let me ask you this. Could you explain, even if it's a high level, the process of actually taking a company from scratch and introducing them to a digital world and specifically the world of inbound marketing?
Sure. It all starts with the brand, right? The brand is number one. So actually, even before the brand, let me back up. Before the brand, it's an education to the client for them to understand what they're about to embark on, right? Because if they don't understand, if they don't buy into what we're going to do as a team here to really help grow your business, then we're one hand tied behind our back, right? So once the client understands the education of what's about to be done and how we're going to do it and what we're going to accomplish in the long run, then we can begin. And when we begin with the brand. The brand is the logo, the identity. It's really the crux of everything that we're going to be putting out to their prospects and or, their personas that they want to kind of focus on. So the brand becomes number one. Once the brand's created, we then go from there and we create kind of a color palette, a scheme, an identity off of that brand that we can then launch into the website development. We launch into the content being built out for that website. We launch into the social media platforms and how they're going to be branded and how they're going to look, how they're going to operate. Email marketing, make sure everything's consistent. Every time an email is being sent, it's on brand. We create a branding guide. So if they're doing anything with third-party places, that everything is always up to speed with the logo and everything else. So you have a consistency that's going to always be there for the brand. That's super important. And then once the brand's created, the website's created, the website becomes your portal, your hub, your salesperson 24/7. That's where we want people to go back. We want people to go back to the website. That's where you're selling. That's where you're explaining. That's where you're educating. That's where people are really getting the guts and the insides of what the product and or service is for that said client. So we utilize all these different digital tools to get people back into the sales funnel, which is basically.
You mentioned social media. I have to ask the question, is Facebook still relevant in the business to business world?
It's relevant and it's not relevant. So it depends on what type of business it is. And it depends on who their persona is that they're really trying to, reach out to. Facebook still has a place for certain businesses, but it is not for everybody anymore, for sure. One thing that's great about Facebook and all the social platforms and pretty much anything within the world of digital marketing, though, is that there's analytics involved with all these social platforms. So whether you think Facebook is a fit or not, it still is worth dabbling in it, getting some stuff out there in Facebook and seeing what the analytics tell you. You may be surprised. Facebook may be a better platform for you than you really thought. And those analytics are going to be the things that'll tell you if it's going to work for you or not. The other thing about Facebook, though, is it's still fairly inexpensive to promote within Facebook. So at least giving it a shot and trying it and see where you're at with Facebook, with those analytics, whether it's working for you or not, is something that I would definitely recommend for pretty much any business, at least to try it. But it doesn't mean it's going to work by any stretch of the imagination, but it doesn't hurt to try. There's other platforms, as we all know, and they're all being created, it seems like, on a monthly, weekly basis, right? And the biggest one right now everyone wants to talk about is TikTok. But the bigger concern about TikTok is it going to be here in a month or a year, So with that being said, Facebook does have, Instagram as well. Instagram is dealing with Reels now, which is similar to TikTok. So you may find more success in the business world now on Instagram than you ever thought you could possibly have. So again, any of these platforms, it's worth trying out. It's worth, dabbling in and seeing what the analytics tell you. If the analytics are telling you it's working, and you're getting, an ROI on that, why not continue? So that's kind of how we look at all the social platforms, and every client's different, but everyone we all know they all have a message and or a strategy behind whatever you're going to be promoting, and see what that strategy gets you. Where we find out is from if it's working or not, again, is analytics. It's most important.
So before we close for the day, I'd love your input and, your experience from, your side of the world, which is, where do you see the future of digital marketing going?
Well, the future of digital marketing, from my perspective, is not going to change from this one basic thing. Understanding a business, understanding what their pain points are for their prospects or the people that want to use their services or whatever it may be. Really getting an understanding of that business is the number one thing that's most important to us, right? So I need to understand somebody's business like the back of my hand. That's part of the job that I actually love the most. And within that world of understanding what the business is all about, what they're trying to get to, where they're trying to go, what are they trying to grow, what sections of their service platform are they trying to grow, or their product platforms are they trying to grow. What we can do now to create a marketing strategy. That strategy is not going to change. Creating a strategy is not going to change. The tools that you may use to get that strategy out to the world may change. That's where the digital marketing universe is going to change. But the strategies and what you create based on the understanding of those businesses, that will not change. So what are the tools going to be? I can't tell you, Ira, in 5 years what those tools are going to be, especially with now AI coming out and becoming so predominant. I don't know what's going to happen, but I will tell you that the strategies we create, we will take advantage of those technologies to make sure that our clients are in the front and the forefront of those sorts of things, to make sure that they are getting the best of the best when it comes to what tools can we use to get that marketing strategy out to their prospects.
Wow, that's great. Well, all I could say is thanks for coming on the show today. And one thing that I think our listeners would love to know is, how can we find out more about Right Now Inbound Marketing?
Well, Right Now Inbound Marketing, we're on the web. We're rightnow.is. That's where you can find us. We'd be more than happy to help anybody out there that's looking to just build their business online. That's pretty much what we do. And getting to know your business and giving you some strategies along the way is what gets us going. That's what gets us up in the morning. And you know what? You mentioned earlier, Ira, I was on Wheel of Fortune once. I certainly was. And I still can't believe I got the bankrupt, Ira. The bankrupt killed me. I was on my way to Hawaii.
Well, again, thank you so much for coming on the show today and sharing, your knowledge about inbound marketing and your journey as a whole. And look forward to seeing more and more good things out of Right Now. So once again, thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. I had a great time, and I'm sure we'll be talking soon, Ira. Great seeing you.
Thanks for listening to Let's Talk Podcast with your host, Ira Warren. I hope you enjoyed the discussion. If you're interested in joining more than 23,000 members across the globe that count on their Vistage Peer Advisory Group to help them make better decisions, be better leaders, and get better results, then let's talk. As always, you can head over to irawarren.com to sign up to our email list, get more information on joining my Vistage Peer Advisory Group, as well as check out all the links and resources in the show notes. That's all for this episode, folks. See you next time.